stop. If you have not played Faith, go play it now. Very few modern games display the degree of passion and narrative impact as this game. It's a culmination of the most horrific primordial terrors and existential concepts in religious literature, communicated entirely through pixels and a series of 5 controls. Today, I'll be going over my top 5 favorite moments in the series. The scariest, most surprising, and most emotional moments in the story will both be presented and analyzed in each section. I will warn you once more. If you've not experienced this game as it was intended, please do yourself a favor and play it first. All endings, all secrets, play it through. My playthrough will be linked in the description if you'd rather watch it. This video will be waiting for you. Viewer discretion, major spoilers, graphic content. Welcome to the impact analysis of Faith, the Unholy Trinity.
I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge, and my fortress. My God, in Him I will trust. I shall not be afraid of the terror in the night. Peace.
The first major demonic encounter within this game happens when the player has next to no information about who they are, the narrative, or their place within it. It creates a thundering sense of wonder and curiosity, but also breeds confusion. Without knowing who you are, why you're here, or even what abilities you have, you're required to face this character's most dangerous challenge in their life. Up until this point, Amy has only revealed herself through her calculated lunges at John's throat, and the player is understandably terrified of the entity that they have to face. We begin our scope of the narrative as John takes his first steps into the attic.
My God, what happened to you?
Do you think my face is pretty?
I have to finish what I started.
She is my priest.
Amy's face remains covered as John holds up his cross. Gray demons shamble from the sides of the room that can't be exorcised, slowly advancing towards us as we stand against Amy. But if John stands in faith for long enough, Amy removes the sheet to reveal a hole where her face should be. Rather than seeing a skull or brain matter, the hole seems to stretch back infinitely, far past the depths of Amy's head. Amy attacks John like she did downstairs, but this time, the attacks are more erratic and wild. It's as if the demon is fatigued. It's trying everything that it possibly can to kill John in this moment. When these attacks are warded for long enough, we see what was being kept in this elusive carved hole. The hand of a demon hangs from the hole as Amy's broken body is forcibly dragged across the edges of a pentagram. The beast grows restless. Its strength is waning, and it knows that John's faith is too strong for its methods. There's no human left in this creature, and every ounce of its rage and pain erupt in this final effort to kill the priest. Finally, when you withstand the onslaught for long enough, she throws herself from the window, and the demon abandons its host and leaves Amy's fate in John's hands. This is the sequence that began the entire mainstream appeal for this game. The graphic yet simple depiction of viscera, unimaginable body horror that is nearly impossible to recreate through raw cinematography, completely made through hand-drawn rotoscope and 2D Unicolor sprites. And not only is this scene terrifying for its presentation and the anxiety of the situation, but the context that Erdorf, the creator and developer of Faith, builds around this character as they enter the fight. It exacerbates your confusion while showing you the true importance of this moment. At this point, the character really only knows what happened at the Martin house and the name of their character, which they just found out in the note right before this fight. The timeline of Amy's exorcism is not revealed to the player at this point, and at this point, they likely have not connected all the dots in the little lore items that they found earlier in the level. They're confused, sifting through every single word and detail to try and find something that explains their situation. Before the player ever gets clarity on the current situation, they are faced with John's greatest test of faith yet. A demon of unknown origins with unknowable power, and we have a cross, alone, to defend ourselves. Each phase of the fight compounds the player's dread and fear. The first scene almost stands as a false sense of security, that Amy will simply sit there as you dodge other entities. In her second phase, the player will likely die multiple times. The reaction-based pattern for this section of the fight requires the player's full focus, and a simple missed key might mean an immediate ambush from behind. When the player beats this phase, there's a wave of accomplishment. I've got this. I'm strong. I have faith. And then, all relief drops in an instant. Anxiety is replaced with a devastating, gnawing terror. Not only is this some of the most disturbing demonic imagery I've ever seen in a retro title, but the third phase of the fight is chaotic, visually overstimulating, and far more challenging than the previous two phases. The exponential ramp in difficulty almost feels more personal and individual than a curated game. It is as if the demon is reserving itself, hiding its strengths from the player. It is as if the demon is testing your skill. It does not know your capabilities, so it's reserving its strength to a degree that the player would never expect. Each fight isn't meant to challenge your skill. It's meant to play with you psychologically, teasing you with a perceived end, and then promptly placing a long flurry of attacks in between. You are not fighting a boss. You are exercising a demon. At the end, when you've done all you can do, you don't even get the clarity of saving Amy's soul. When we leave her in the true ending, Amy's body is broken and bloodied, and the demon still seems to be in control. There's no clarity offered to the player, and they simply have to have faith that they've done the right thing. This is one of the first major demonic encounters in the game, and I'm pleased to say it's more than likely the most tame item on this list. We've seen the power and spectacle of a minor demonic possession, one which the cult in this game considers to be commonplace. So what unfathomable horrors could lie in the cult's most powerful demon? Before we ever get a chance to learn of this demon's existence, we are thrust into the tunnel of... Fast forward to Chapter 2. We've just defeated the spindly lady in the Snake Meadow Hill Church, and the stairs to the secret basement of the church has revealed itself. At this point, the player has seen many unexplainable things. Souls leaving bodies, strange demons without hosts, stabbing themselves in the eye. And all these strange occurrences are explained to the player when we find out that we're dreaming. However, at this moment, the player does not know they're in a dream, and everything is real and unexplainable to them. Without direction or knowledge of what's to come, we step into the underground tunnel beneath the church to find a note. This is my final memoir, hastily scribbled on a page of the good book. I now descend a staircase, knowing full well that she waits for me ahead. Checking my old watch has revealed something quite astonishing. Time doesn't change down here the way we know it on the surface. Even now, the hands don't move past 2 o'clock. God's work be done. I've been to where only the faintest light shine and protect from things unspeakable. God help me, Father Clark, a foolish old man going mad in this dark prison, ears bleeding from the screams of the demon. Something is down here with us. A demonic terror beyond human comprehension sits beyond a blanket of shadows, and your only glimpse of it comes when you save yourself from it. This moment is terrifying in a vacuum, don't get me wrong, but the surrounding context, or lack thereof, makes this moment so much more impactful, terrible, and horrifying. We've been shown the impact of a series of tragedies before the basement, and the player is grappling with their position in the entirety of the narrative. The Snake Meadow Hill Church murders, the disappearances, the cemetery. All these locations hold a tragic tale that isn't discoverable on the first playthrough. We don't know our significance or purpose with any of these major demonic encounters, but we are forced to act with what we know regardless of what we don't. The player is well aware of this. We're building the car as we drive it, flying by the seat of our pants. And when your unplanned crusade, which you didn't choose for yourself, places you at the doorstep of humanity's most monstrous, horrifying, grotesque adversary, you question your faith in your quest, in your ability, in yourself. But as this game's namesake, you can only persevere through faith, and faith in your feet will let you pass unseen by the mother of demons. From the encounters we've covered so far, we can pick out some very definite details and patterns for the horror of faith. For the imagery, the use of rotoscope drawings to depict body horror, impossible anatomy, grotesque injuries, it's perfect for this genre. It lets the mind play with concepts of grotesque injury, broken human anatomy, and things that you could only really experience in a nightmare. Additionally, the basis of fear that comes from each battle stems from the player's limited ability in their character. You have only 4 directions to face, a very limited range of attack, and you cannot pivot while holding your cross. Mechanically, this game is very particular. A slight shift in position or angle during a fight will easily get you killed immediately. So the player needs full focus at all times on the controls. In light of this, the game focuses specifically on the limitations of its controls. Amy's 4 directional clones, the diagonal attack pattern of the spindly lady, the sheer speed and chaos of Amy's 3rd phase. Each of these fights preys specifically on the limitations of the direction you can face and the fact that you can't pivot while facing in a direction. Then, when the player is finally used to all these curveballs in combat, it removes the ability to fight entirely. As we could typically expect with demons, the Unspeakable doesn't want to fight you. You are infinitely weak in comparison. Like it could clean the floor with your bone marrow. It wants to toy with you. It wants you to play its game just to give you the illusion of survival, a false sense of security, a weeping angel, being forced not to use what is at your disposal, a common trope of horror. The very things you lay your life on will end it if you use them in this moment. A fear of what keeps you safe. And this next moment is the best example of that within this game. The player has now seen the ritual site with the 3 victims. They've been teleported to the unseen world, and they likely have a good hold on the controls and motions of the game. We've fought many demons, and our cross now feels like an extension of ourselves. It is our faith and our light. Then the player enters this room. There are 4 pillars, each with a line of text. When you see it, don't move. Everything about this moment, the pauses between reading each line of the pillar, the horrific imagery of the demon, the desolate isolation of the candy tunnel, and the fact that you have to stand there and stare into the eyes of death. Your faith in the cryptic instructions from the room prior are your only light in this situation. And any doubt being acted on within this sequence will lead to a swift and painful
Mortis.
Something I've always felt within gaming that I don't hear a lot of people talk about is the feelings that we have toward these different entities like the Peekaboo Demon. Enemies with a defined set of rules that differentiates them from the rest of the enemies in the game. They feel more significant in their own right than any of the main antagonists. You know your big bads in this game now. You've learned about Gary. You've met the cult, you've seen the unspeakable, and each of these enemies and encounters feel large, powerful, overarching, and you're generally opposed to their motives and actions. But with a minor enemy like this, it feels much more that you were never supposed to step foot where you are, that you are facing something horrifying and powerful within its own domain, and it's your fault for landing into this situation at all. Rather than powerful and menacing, this demon feels elusive and mysterious. The terror in this situation does not come from the knowledge of horrific intentions and inhumane goals, but from the complete ignorance of what is possible and what is predictable. You're amazed and terrified at the abomination in front of you, and you have no other option than giving yourself up and leaving yourself to its mercy. That's all the scenes I want to cinematically recreate, but there are a few moments in Chapter 3 that I really want to highlight. John has been faced with countless demons. He's fought his way through every single tithe of this cult. They've traversed all the way through Garyland. And at this point, there's not really much that could scare the player. We've opened the gate of Moloch, partaken the darkness, traversed the dark forest, opened the first seal, and we're now descending into the final depths of Garyland. Thralls, low-ranking cult members line the walls, only illuminated by our lamp.
Please. How do you make a portal to hell?
Their heads have exploded. Tendrils flail wildly from each of the craters.
Sometimes it waits for someone who has already walked through it.
More of their bodies. The tendrils flail through the crowd, bathing it in viscera.
Sometimes it opens itself into the deepest, darkest room where nobody can find it.
My God.
Sometimes it comes when you turn up to you.
The twins?
Hello, John. It's supposed to follow me. Lord, help me. Somebody please help me.
A being of light?
This is too much for me. I'm so afraid. Please let me escape this place. I just want to go home. I'll do whatever you want. Just take me away from here. I swear it.
The Martin's house. That is where this apparition was. There is a lot to unpack with this moment, but we'll start at the corridor. The visceral walls that surround you after the second message are beyond terrifying. And just the degree of terror in this moment put me in fear in my playthrough. Dude, I cannot describe the dryness in my throat right now. I have not, I'm not usually this fearful. I'm scared. You are surrounded. Each of these thralls linked together in a massive wall of gore. You are pigeonholed forward. There's nowhere to go but toward the voice of Gary. Speaking of Gary, what is this riddle?
Sometimes it waits for someone who has already walked through it.
This could possibly mean us, as we open the door to Moloch, and there's a note in chapter 2 that calls this ritual the portal to hell, or the door to hell, and we ended up in the unseen world just before this point.
Sometimes it opens itself in such darkness room where nobody can find it.
This is likely speaking about Tiffany, an acolyte that was so dedicated and desperate to be a part of Gary's plan that she performed the second death ritual on herself. Tiffany is another demon I wanted to recreate, but yeah, budget cuts. I think this statement means three things, each with a different tense: past, present, and future. In the past, we've seen Amy after her first ritual, and it's now revealed that the hole in her face is the portal to hell from the second death ritual. In the present, Gary approaches us in the darkness. We learn from in-game notes that Gary is a spawn of the second death ritual. And in the future, as we see in Gary's fight, we are the subject of the second death. We are the portal, and we're walking right up to Gary. And the twins at the end, a glimmer of hope to a long desolate tunnel, ripped away in an instant from what stands directly behind you. During your conversation with Gary, he will reveal that the twins were an illusion, a burning memory of two children lost at birth, a memory that belongs to Cindy Martin. Her mental state was restless even before the cult's intervention. Her house is filled with objects, cribs, and toys for two twin boys who in truth were never born. A troubled mother faced with the most depressing reality imaginable, and her only glimmer of hope, her daughter Amy, is the key subject for the cult's most horrific plan in history. And what does this mean for John and Garcia? The twins were their focal point. Both the delusional grieving of Cindy Martin and the deliberate line of reception, and the deliberate execution, and the deliberate line of deception from the cult have made the boys real. And now it's revealed that those very boys never even existed. And what may have been a red herring meant to turn them off track has landed John in the lair of the cult who has plagued him since his childhood. Also, yeah, John was a kid when all this started. He was one of the children in the Snake Meadow Hill Church, one of the only two that survived. The other one is Lisa. I will not be elaborating. At first, I was entirely confused during my playthrough, as I thought we were seeing the apparition when we were talking to Gary. But I think it's pretty definitive that this interaction happened at the first exorcism of Amy Martin. While we're likely quick to assume that this is an angel or God himself in this moment, it is definitive that this entity is something much more sinister in nature. Just listen to the wording. If I lead us thou to safety, her fate shall be sealed upon thine head. This is very sinister and judgmental, and it's certainly out of character for the Christian God to damn one of his own children to a permanent fate. In Christian literature and study, fates are very impermanent to God. The gift of free will can never be tainted by one's actions permanently until they have lost their life. Regardless of what the action is, it is your decision to partake in it and repent for it. But the previous statement seems to lock John into his current choices, something which we would not see in the Christian God. Swear it. This seals the deal in my mind. What does a promise do for the Lord? Nothing. He knows all truths and all lies and all intentions, and he would be able to see through anything you say without you ever explicitly stating. This entity is using the power of a promise to lock John into a life of despair and terror, of regretting his actions and making futile attempts to redeem himself. What antagonist in Christian literature disguises himself and uses words to lock and manipulate his victims within their own mind simply with his words? That's right, Satan, the devil. From 2 Corinthians 11:14. And no wonder, for Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light. Satan used his angelic form to get John to swear off Amy's soul. But unknowingly to him, John would take those words to heart and would return a year later to make things right. And finally, the culmination of all story elements we've found so far, a moment in the narrative that ties off all loose ends, is this. After fighting Gary, dodging his rain of spiders, and avoiding each demon that we've encountered so far flying at us from off the screen, John finally gets some backup. Gotti. Yes! Yeah, boy! Woo! Finally, we meet Father Garcia in person. And thankfully, he's a badass. And he pops Gary a few more times before he escapes. Gary's face is blown apart, and he bleeds profusely as he runs from the room. Serves him right. Good luck collecting your client's rent with that ugly mug. And not to mention, he's been injured in much the same way as a second death victim, the ritual from which he was born. Father Garcia will lead you to a new room. There's a hole in the center, and a large inscribed block floats just above. If the player failed to slay all 3 demons before this point in the story, the hole in the center will be sealed with a demonic seal, and Garcia and John will work together to seal the crucible with Gary inside. In the end, if the player reached all major demons but failed to defeat them, John and Garcia leave Garyland, and Father Garcia promises to be John's spiritual guide. But in this interaction, John says something that seals the deal for a previous detail mentioned before this moment.
Father, last year when I first met Amy, I saw the devil. He trained me. I don't think I'll ever be free of Amy.
I believe John knows that the apparition appeared before him that night was indeed Satan, and he feels trapped by his promise on Amy's fate. If the player missed a few key details before this moment in the story, the reaction will be a lot more antagonistic.
That was a story twist.
There's another ending where you don't go to Garyland for the 3rd day, but I'll let you find that yourself. The true ending results when the player kills all 3 major demons that uphold the seal, which blocks the entrance to the crucible. With these demons defeated, Father Garcia protects us from the top as we jump in to the crucible.
Behold my mother, please. She tried to become the Unholy Trinity, but her body was too old to withstand it. After all these years, I found the perfect vessel to take that honor upon herself. But we both know how that turned out. You have pursued me as far as I will go. Only one of us gets out alive. I will make you the first mortal to witness the profane Sabbath, and the first to be consumed by it. But before I do, I will let you in on the secret.
Gary has morphed into his true demonic form, Astaroth, one of the chief princes of hell, and he is prepared to perform the ritual for the profane Sabbath. His mother, Miriam Bell, is hung by her ankles from the head of a goat. Her body is deteriorated, pale, and heavily decayed from over 50 years of decomposition. He was going to use Amy's body, but John's intervention at the start of the game removed that option for him. And now, Gary crawls and lunges at John, spawning demonic seals in John's path and increasing his attacks in speed and aggression as the fight continues. After a while, Malphus appears, a demon that we met in the apartments that was summoned by the efforts of the cult. Malphus guards the edges of the arena, throwing spears that slowly spread and cover more of the center of the arena. He will also jump occasionally, either to switch sides of the arena or to pounce on top of John. Gary continues his assault, and now our weak, exhausted, troubled priest is faced with 2 chief demons of hell, and is the first human to witness the profane Sabbath and its unspeakable nature. After enough damage is dealt, the demons submit. They phase out of existence and fly around the edges of the arena, until they nest inside the hanging corpse of Miriam Bell. Super Miriam. This being is the goal of the profane Sabbath. It attacks in a flurry. How can I dodge this for the entire fight? We push, we run, and we stand in faith until inevitably...
My God, take this from me.
What? For the first time in the game, John is being resurrected after each hit. It seems that we've braved the Lord's test long enough.
This abomination's power is too great.
The demon's attacks grow more powerful and more difficult to dodge with each passing phase. You start to feel determined, and you repeat each key story detail as the fight rages on.
And yet, it is not the end.
This is for John's life of undeserved torment. This is for Amy. This is for Michael. This is for the children in the cornfield.
Perhaps some divine intervention at last. Yes, Lord, I feel thou art with me.
This is for Father Garcia, Father Clark, and Father Allred.
Thy saving grace transfigures me.
This is for Lisa. This is for Molly. This is the work of the Lord, and we are his vessel.
The power to save myself and those I love.
We continue fighting, pushing ourselves to our very limits.
But alas, I can't go on like this forever.
John's protection begins to wane. He's cheated death many times, but his flesh begins to tear and burn once again.
The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak.
If we aren't able to stagger the demon before this point, we watch John fully succumb to it.
How often we forget. Faith without works is mortis.
Faith without works is mortis. Death. A presence of faith in the Lord without the action of performing his will leads to damnation. One must act as the Lord would before their soul can be truly saved. However, if we press on, we think back to a note that we found while roaming the halls under Molo. Master of spirits, the body of the mother stayeth suspended beneath the crucible of the profane Sabbath. If thou canst unlock the final secrets of the crucible, know ye this. The cross hath the power to weaken the mother, but only someone who is ablaze with purifying fire canst truly destroy her. If thou canst understand these words, thou shalt know the true cost of thy faith. We cannot kill the demon with our cross. It is only weakened and staggered. But we notice two burning challenges at each bottom corner of the arena. In a moment of opportunity, the demon is staggered and the vessel stands unprotected, ablaze with purifying fire. The true cost of thy faith.
In front of the post. Simon Orlan and Alex and Alice. Simon Mother and Filia and Spiritus Emontos. Meat Trinitas Profana. Amy, I'm so sorry. I couldn't save you. In nomine Patri et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen.
At last, John has saved Amy's soul. We've pushed through unbearable grief and despair. We've watched those around us be taken by an unstoppable force. And yet, through faith, we have stood against it and taken it down. From this point, the player can either choose to live the rest of their life with Lisa or go on another spiritual mission to dispel the satanic evil that lurks just beyond, the unspeakable. At first, I was confused at why Amy's face returned after the fight, why she was able to speak to you for a brief moment. But now I believe I understand what this moment is and why it's included. Amy's exorcism kicked off the mental downfall for John Ward, her damnation tormenting him at every waking second. He grapples with his past mistakes. Could I have done more? Could I have saved her soul that day? Could I have realized I was being tricked? Through that exorcism, John would be launched into a journey he did not choose for himself, one which spelled the fate of humanity. He realizes this, and instead of continuing to dwell on his past mistakes, he treads forward with unwavering faith and bravery. He has saved the world through the guidance of God, and for his perseverance, God allows him to speak with Amy one last time. While her body was controlled, Amy's statement indicates that she was still experiencing everything the demon was putting her through. She was seeing through her own eyes like a lens, and feeling every bit of pain that she went through without being able to step in the way. However, as depressing as that is, it also means she knew that John was persevering and came back to save her. She saw herself slaughter her entire household, only missing John because of his escape. After a year, she watches him return just again to save her soul, and this time not backing down. Amy might not have been present in her body at that point, but I like to think that she saw the dedication of a holy man that chose to cleanse her. And as the demon leaves her broken, bloodied shell, and she sees John again with a weapon, with every opportunity and motive to kill her, he spares her. With this single moment of clarity and sentience in her own body, Amy is able to truly conclude John's mental suffering. And for John, he's blessed to finally meet the soul he's chased for so long. And not only is her soul saved from this demonic possession, but in this final gift from God, he is able to hear her true gratitude for his actions. And that is the end of Faith, the Unholy Trinity. This is genuinely one of the best horror titles I've played to date. And in my opinion, while a lot of people say that it's from the depictions of horror through rotoscope and the 2D sprites like we were talking about, I believe the true beauty and impact of this project comes from the simple yet potently effective writing. Erdorf managed to capture all of the gruesome, horrible happenings and desperation of a demonic, world-ending threat, yet without seeming pretentious or overly grandiose. The world is in danger. It has sealed its fate, and there is only one man with the power and knowledge to stop it. Through dedication and faith in his actions and guidance of the Lord, not through divine intervention or blessings, John is able to defeat the world's greatest adversary and his own personal demons. Those personal demons are the shame of failure, the uncertainty in one's own ability, and the predetermined fate to a soul damned to demonic service. Also, wasn't that cover fire in the last section? Like heat? Like give me more type? Like shit, bro. That cover is by Mountain Metal. It's for Super Miriam. It's the soundtrack in the game. I'll leave a link in the description for that song below on his channel. Please give him support. Jesus, it's heat. I promise, bro. Check it out. Like, listen to that shit. On a final note, if you decided to watch this video and spoil the narrative for yourself, I'm so sorry. I warned you, but do know that I did not cover everything in this game. John's first exorcism, the secret demon, the clinic, the entirety of the fucking apartments, and they're all terrifying in their own unique way. Please do yourself a favor and go experience this game as it was intended. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed. Links are in the description for Discord, Instagram. Please support both Erdorf and Mountain Metal for their amazing talents. The link is in the description below. As a side note, I cut the hell out of my finger trying to set up this thing, and that's why I've had this freaking 8-pound bandage on my hand. So sorry about that. Not sorry about that. It hurts like a bitch. Anyways, thank you for watching. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace!